You're listening to episode number 12 of the IoT Weekly podcast. Hello and welcome to episode number 12 of the IoT Weekly podcast, brought to you by Gearforge Software. My name is Matthew, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Cliff and Zeineb. Hello, how are you guys?
I am doing great.
Yeah, well, I'm doing well enough.
Well, we'll take well enough.
Yep.
Very good. What have you guys been up to? Cliff?
Thank you. So, the main things I've been sorting through is playing a little bit with Puppeteer and Chromium. It's a really slick way using, if you're familiar with Node.js, which I know you are, Matthew, but it's a nice way essentially to use like a headless server, basically, to take a look at a web page, grab some data from it and bring it back, and then be able to manipulate it leveraging some JavaScript. So never really touched the headless servers before, so this was a lot of fun playing with this last week.
Very cool. Yeah, that sounds super interesting. Zeineb, how about you?
I have had so much time to work on Twitter, and I've been really enjoying. Yeah, I was just starting to make, instead of just getting photos ready-made, you just make your own. And I was really enjoying that. And then I've just been working on an application for a business competition, so like a little pitch and all that.
That's awesome.
That's super cool.
It's really fun. Oh, but what about you, Matthew?
Thank you. I have been, had fun in games with Cloud Init, which is basically a way of bootstrapping a server, like a cloud virtual machine. Mm-hmm. And I actually ran into some headaches with it this last weekend. Sort of wrestled it to the ground and figured out what was working and what was not. But basically, the end result was there are some things that do not seem to be working as documented. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Zeineb, you mentioned spending a lot of time on Twitter. Tell me, how has Twitter been going?
Ooh, it's been going really great. We just hit, if I can look right here, we just hit 359 followers.
What?
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Hey, and that's one more than
crazy.
Just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, we got one.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, that's slick.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Good work.
Yeah, and we have a winner, don't we?
Winner, chicken dinner. Yes, we do. So John is going to be getting a IoT button from us shortly. Unfortunately, we also had another winner. However, we're only shipping currently within the United States, and this listener was from the United Kingdom. So my apologies go out to you. I know you really wanted it, but I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yes.
But it's exciting. Really glad we've got some more followers and another winner, and that is great. So what's the story with this contest? Do we have another milestone?
That's a great question. I don't know, maybe 400, 450? What do you think? We're kind of making it up as we go on this point because we've gotten a lot more than we expected here. So this is great.
Let's go for 450.
450?
So when we hit 450, we'll draw another one. We still got more of these buttons
challenging me right now.
We're challenging you. Well, that's okay. Exactly. It's always good for a challenge.
Fair enough.
Absolutely. And just as a reminder, so if you follow our Twitter handle at Gearforge IoT, we will put your name in the hat to win one of these Amazon IoT buttons. Mm-hmm. If you boost our tweets by retweeting them, we'll put your name in a little extra. So that'll just help get the word out, and thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Also, if you have any other feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Whatever it is, shoot us a message at podcast@gearforgesoftware.com.
Yes.
All right. So, Cliff, do you want to talk about our show sponsor?
Yep. So our show sponsor is Gearforge Software. They were founded to focus on and develop the Internet of Things technology and create custom IoT solutions. As you can imagine, there's a lot of different areas you need to think through when you're trying to get a new idea off the ground. You got the hardware, you got the software, then you have the business side of things, and then connecting it all to the cloud. And then if you can imagine, there's also the product development portion of the IoT technology. And apparently that's where some techie advisors or some geeks could help you kind of guide you through that wild west of that new digital frontier. With 2 IoT labs, Gearforge can bring any prototype to life. Learn more at gearforgesoftware.com.
Fantastic. And Cliff, you may want to mention our Gearforge Amazon list as well. We put together a list of some interesting things, didn't we?
We have, and we keep adding this to it. We'll put this on the show notes. And what we try to do is, as we find and as we use new, whether it's hardware or there are books that we find useful or others that might recommend, we'll add this to a list from Amazon, so that way you can actually not have to worry about when you're trying to select some of these things.
That is fantastic. And yeah, that might also be a great way if you have feedback and you want to tell us about your favorite item, let us know. We'll add it to our Amazon list. So just
Most
shoot
definitely.
us an email or mention it on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, I think we're ready to dive into the news this week.
And that's exciting.
I know, isn't it? The meat and potatoes of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start off with an article by Charlie Osborne talking about this new energy efficient IoT chip created by MIT specifically to help provide encryption for some of these low power devices. So basically the researchers at MIT have got these processors. One of the core problems in IoT related to security is that encryption it's processor intensive, CPU intensive, basically, which means number one, power requirement is high, and number two, most of these algorithms, modern algorithms, require a lot of memory, and these are both things that traditional IoT devices don't have a lot of, like they don't have much to spare. So apparently MIT has come up with this sort of new concept, and basically what they're doing is they've got a new chip, and it's hardwired for public key encryption, but it consumes 1/400th of the power that standard protocols usually do. So a lot more power efficient and 10% as much memory. They also say they can execute commands up to 500 times faster. So that's
this is crazy.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And apparently it uses what's called elliptic curve encryption, which relies on a range of mathematical functions and curves to enhance security. MIT's chips have been designed to handle any curvature. So that sounds fantastic. I don't know what it means.
It sounds really cool. Again, I have no idea what that actually means.
Yes, I would love to have somebody with a mathematical background to tell me. But but I think this is exciting. I mean, this is a great example, again, of there's always innovation in any of these areas, but this is a core problem for IoT, right? Yep. And here is a potential solution to it, and maybe that's just the future.
So if I'm not wrong, this could be like, I mean, not only is it energy efficient, but it seems like it could be a long-term solution due to how flexible it is and the fact that it could work with just any kind of encryption.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is when you've got a laptop with modern hardware, you can handle the hardware can handle encryption that an IoT device just can't. But this potentially brings similar levels of security to devices that it would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. And what I like about that is, of course, I'm always talking about security, but it's like this makes everybody more secure, right? You might have to make some trade-offs right now. Your IoT device may not be able to do some of the things that you would like it to do, and you may not have an option. But with this, maybe this gives us a viable option for encryption on these devices.
Yeah, so of course I went to Wikipedia because I'm really curious. If I don't look it up now, I probably won't ever look this thing up about the elliptic curve, right? So here's what it's saying. So for elliptic curve based protocols, it is assumed that finding the discrete logarithm of a random elliptic curve element with respect to a publicly known base is infeasible. This is the elliptic curve discrete logarithm problem. The security of elliptic curve cryptography depends on the ability to compute a point multiplication and the inability to compute the multiplicand given the original and product points. The size of the elliptic curve determines the difficulty of the problem. Huh. That sounds really interesting.
Totally does.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Side there, but that sounds really interesting.
As a business person, I am very confused.
The IoT devices will be safer with this.
Yes.
That- I was thinking about last week, and we were talking. I believe it was last week that we were talking about SAM.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the little device that will hook up to just about everything, and it kind of works that way. And the issues with privacy, and this has the advantage of better security, and none of the disadvantages of lack of privacy. So I feel like we're making strides with this, and it's becoming like it's becoming a lot better.
So I think there are lots of aspects to security. Encryption is one of them. Sort of, I guess, like intrusion prevention is kind of another.
Yep.
So I feel like this SAM, basically, as I understood that system, the idea there is to try to keep your software up to date on these devices, your firmware most likely. And the problem is, as people discover holes or sort of ways to get through the security, and that might pertain to encryption as well. Like maybe it is an old form of encryption that has since been cracked. So, for example, the internet is in the process of retiring TLS 1.0 because it's no longer secure, right? And it's been like nobody's used it for ages, but somebody out there has a server and it only supports TLS 1.0 and it's super insecure right now, right?
Guaranteed.
Yeah, so it's kind of, it's like one of the aspects, but I think the more universally strong encryption could be used, the safer everybody is. And that's also true for the more universally patches can be applied without human beings having to remember to do something, the better off that is for security. So I think it's probably a both and situation. This helps with the encryption side. It doesn't necessarily help with the software side, but both are good things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a complement essentially, in my opinion. When you're looking at these, it's like it's complementing the other.
So I totally agree. And Cliff, what can you tell me about Lego bricks and IoT?
Oh, sure. So Particle, and I think I might have talked about them before. Particle launches Lego bricks for IoT mesh networks and essentially sells 5K in 5 hours. I actually found this really interesting because I'm on the Particle newsletter, and I actually was included when this launched just this week, actually. And I'm really interested in the mesh, and I'll talk about it here in another minute. But really, the mesh, what I find interesting is let me take a step back. So the particle mesh, some of the problems that you face is, let's say you're down in a mine, Matthew, right? I don't know how often you find yourself in a mine.
All the time.
Yeah. So
Don't I work in a salt mine? Isn't that?
You do, and you bring out some really yummy salt too, which is fortunate.
I love salt.
I do too. So tasty. Makes my carrots so much better.
Oh no!
Don't salt your carrots.
Don't salt the carrots. Got it.
Sometime I gotta talk to you about truffle salt. Truffle salt is my favorite thing. Oh, it's amazing.
I wish I could taste it.
All right, continue.
So you're down in a mine, and I mean, holy cow, you don't have access to a cell service, right?
Not usually, no.
Right? So typically you don't.
Also, in all of Northern California, apparently, I
Yeah,
don't have access to a cell.
that could be the other problem. So the problem that you face is if you've got an IoT sensor down there, again, this comes back to connectivity. How do you get the data out, right? So what they're doing is the particle mesh creates a local network that collects the data, and then through another chipset, basically, it will share the messages and connect to the internet.
Gotcha.
So it's essentially creating you could create like a subterranean network, right, through these chipsets, and then have an access point at the top of the mine that either uses Wi-Fi or leverages, let's say, LTE, and is able then to push this information out.
Gotcha.
So that's the key thing that they actually just launched here. As of right now, they've sold about 15,000 devices. Of about 20. They're shipping these July of 2018, and it's considered their third generation. So it's the argon, the boron, and the xenon. The xenon is the actual low-cost mesh node, and what do those cost? The mesh node costs $9. So I mean, it's not bad. No, and like for the boron, which is LTE, it's $29. And that's how you get the information out, which actually is really cheap. The
Did you
argon.
call me a boron?
No, I did not call you a boron.
Really
I called you an argon. Come on.
Oh, well, that's okay.
That's always better.
I am totally an argon.
Yes. And those run $15. So I mean, it's they do have adapters to fit to their old kind of chipsets, so you can buy one of these adapters. I think it's like a couple bucks. It's like $5 for one of these adapters. Yep, there it is, $5, and you can get a debugger and things like that. So they've got the full kit here available. And the article itself from Forbes actually highlights how you could leverage this from a Lego standpoint. So it's that's how they're kind of thinking of it. Realistically, it's the bricks that pull it all together in the Forbes article. And I'll put an actual link in the show notes to the actual page if you actually wanted to purchase some of these. There's only there's only probably 5,000 left here that you can actually pick up. So
nice.
I've been, as you can imagine, most folks know I'm really interested in the connectivity side of things.
Yes.
So I've been really watching Particle, just because it is really focused on the connectivity side of things. So
sorry, how does this relate to Legos?
I think they're actually using the Legos as a example. I don't think it really relates to Legos at all.
I see.
Yeah, so it's just they're trying to use Legos as an analogy from that standpoint.
I see. So this literally has nothing to do with anything related to a partnership between Particle and Legos.
Aww.
It is Particle are like Legos.
Correct.
IoT.
Yep. I think the analogy is not that great.
Well, the title was a little bit.
Oh yeah, I look at it like,
Particle
oh my gosh, that's
launches
super
Lego
cool.
bricks for IoT mesh networks. I'm like, Legos. I love Legos.
I got really excited too.
Yeah. Well, I seen it. Like, I got excited because it's the particle mesh stuff that I was reading about earlier this week.
Yeah. See, you saw particle mesh. I saw Legos.
Ah, yes. So, yep. There you go. That would be why.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really about the particle mesh, and this is it comes back to that connectivity place. Is how do you do, and then it comes back to some of that edge computing that we've talked about quite a bit, right? How do you do some of that stuff without having to maybe push it out or send it out in larger packets, possibly?
Yeah. So I actually had a conversation this week with a potential client with exactly this problem. And yeah, you and I should talk about that later.
No kidding. He's
No
got
kidding.
He's got mesh issues.
He's got mesh issues. Yeah.
Oh, gosh darn it. I hate it when I get mesh issues.
Hey, Zeineb,
Yeah.
do you want to tell us about some wake-up receivers?
Oh yeah, my alarm. I absolutely hate it. Um,
Don't we all?
but I mean, I'm not the only one who'll be needing an alarm. So apparently there are small wake-up receivers that can be used to extend IoT sensor life.
Okay.
And yeah, so basically when they're talking about the Internet of Things, they're wondering how you can um, power all of these and how you're going to change the batteries in a sense as time goes on.
Hmm.
And so they came up with this idea of having some kind of receiver, a little thing that sends out radio signals to turn on and off the IoT sensors. And so they last longer.
Hmm.
But the issue here is that most of the time, you have to put a lot of bulk on the sensors themselves. And
Hmm.
so when you want the sensors to be small, if you want to have them like an asset tracking, if you want to have sensors everywhere, you want it to be small, that's not going to work. And so they
Yeah.
come up with ultrasonic wake-up receivers, which have shorter waves, and so most of the time they're much smaller. They fit within millimeters.
Hmm.
I don't know how much that is in inches. Um, and you actually can't hear them, but they take up a lot less space, a lot less power, and I think it's absolutely wonderful.
This is pretty
So,
slick because I've been looking for something to be able to track a rabbit or two. So I mean, this might work. I'm telling
rabbit
you.
trackers.
Yeah, rabbit trackers.
It takes so little power, it's ridiculous. It says in the article that it takes about a billionth the power it takes to light a single old-fashioned Christmas bulb.
Wow.
A billionth.
I mean, I think this makes a lot of sense, right? So the challenge, what it says in the article, is you need to, anytime something has a battery, it needs to be changed. And as soon as that happens, your cost goes way up because somebody has to go change the battery, right?
Yep.
So the idea of being, there are lots of different potential solutions to this, but like we talked about last week, I think it was last week, we
Yeah.
talked about the ambient heat um, generating power for
Isn't
sensors.
that like the Energizer or something like that?
Yeah.
The Evercell?
Yes, the
Yeah, the
Evercell. There you go.
Evercell.
Yep, the
That's
Evercell.
right. And this is another potential solution. It's like, yeah, only use power when you need it to, but for this to work, you got to be able to turn things on and off in some
Yep.
way, right? Have a way to have it wake up for you. So that's
Well,
pretty cool.
and I think even beyond having like it's because this article just says, hey, it's gonna be expensive to roll out to these places. But I mean, let's say you deploy let's say you're a trash company. Let's find
Hmm.
an example here, and you want to actually put it onto trash containers and essentially say, hey, we'll give you a discount if we only pick up your trash when it's actually full, right? Um, and if you get, let's say you've got, I don't know, 5,000 of these things in a city, um, it may not be that it's just hard to go out to them. It's just you've got so many of them that you really don't want to ever go out to them and change these batteries.
Yep, totally.
So, and in those cases, you probably have a little more space, but realistically, you'd rather not go out there and change it. So, as much battery saving as you can, that's huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah, it definitely costs a lot less to have just a few millimeters of extra kind of added stuff on the actual sensor than it is to have to go out, send people, experts who know what they're doing, to switch them out
Yep,
constantly.
yep, exactly.
And especially for smaller and medium-sized businesses who want to use this type of IoT solutions, cutting down those costs is very crucial.
100%. Yep. Yeah, the last thing you want to do is add a new revenue source and have it eaten away because you've got to send out service individuals to fix the new technology.
Well, I mean, the problem just expands the more sensors you have,
Yep.
Yeah.
the
And
more
so
batteries
kind
you
of
have.
Yeah, so kind of like solutions like these, and especially the Evercell, where you just leave it. You don't even look at it anymore. It's just, yeah, it's as you expand, you don't even have to think about it anymore.
That's
Evercell
smart.
is such a cool concept.
I'm really curious to see if that thing ever actually launches.
Me too. Yeah,
That would
very, very interesting. I mean, I think we're probably stuck with batteries for the near future. So this seems like a very practical solution, you know,
Yep.
kind of addressing the problem that's currently here. Evercell seems like that's maybe the future solution.
Hmm.
Yeah, very cool.
The only concern I have, Matthew, and,
Mhm.
and maybe it says that incoming ultrasonic, so roughly at a dog whistle frequency, is better than normal radio for wake up. Do you think we're getting a lot more dogs like barking now because of this?
Notice that too. Yeah, I kind of do. I kind of do.
I'm sure they can switch it out a little bit, but until then, the dogs will be going crazy. They're like, yeah, imagine just hearing the whistle constantly and you're doing what you need to, but you're not getting the treat.
You know, I bought multiple dog whistles, and I think I'm doing something wrong because I can hear them all. So I must be like not blowing the stupid whistle right.
Maybe you're a dog. Have you ever
Yeah.
considered that?
I have not, because I don't have the greatest hearing in the first place. So I really I really don't think that's the case.
It's
How's
okay,
your
neither
sense
does
of
my dog.
smell?
It's even worse.
Oh, really?
I can't smell your truffle salt.
All right, maybe you're not a dog.
Well, do you smell salt even? That's just a bit
I don't know.
odd.
It's
Truffle salt, you do. We had
Yeah.
to put it in a special bag because it has such a strong aroma. It was like you'd open the cupboard and that's all you could smell.
You
Oh
walk
boy.
over to Matthew's house like,
Smells
the
like
truffles?
truffles.
It smells like truffles. Yeah,
smells like truffles in here.
I put truffle salt on everything.
It does.
Cliff
Like-
knows. Yeah.
It's like garlic in me.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, Cliff.
Yes.
Tell me
Yes.
about the future of Bluetooth.
So yes, back to the Bluetooth, back to the stories here. Well, it looks like IMEC Renaissance Electronics announced a new Bluetooth transceiver for IoT. The story is brought to us by Abe Michelin from electronics360.globalspec.com. That is a mouthful right there.
Yes, it is.
It is. It's crazy. So it sounds like they actually debuted a new low voltage, ultra low power Bluetooth low energy, or BLE transceiver specifically designed for IoT. They claim the chip will extend battery life by 50%. And in addition, the chip will allow a less complex power management unit and is designed to operate using any non-standard energy source, such as energy harvesters. Device is implemented on a 4 nanometer CMOS chip and consists of a phase tracking receiver, digital transmitter, and a bunch of other stuff that most folks aren't probably even understand right there. So the interesting thing that I think is the BLE, or Bluetooth Low Energy, looks like it's really coming out as a kind of a simple way to interact with a lot of these chipsets, Arduinos, and Raspberry Pis. It's really easy to use. You can hook these things up. You can interact it really simply with, say, with an Android phone or an Apple, as long as it actually supports the BLE.
Mhm.
And it's probably a really cost-effective mechanism to get some user interaction right away. And I think of BLE, and a lot of folks, when you think of BLE, or you think of, let's say, RF tags, right?
Mhm.
BLE, you can actually detect within feet, where RF tags are typically within centimeters, right? Very close proximity.
Sure.
BLE are transmitting, so they're typically transmitting out, and they do take a little bit of power, but typically in most cases they last for about 2 years. So it sounds like this would potentially allow you to have something that lasts even longer than that. It doesn't talk about cost right now, but I do know that most BLEs range from $3 to $20 or $30, depending on kind of the use case, whether it's industrial or just kind of a dev kit or something like that. So,
Mhm.
and they're pretty simple to get started with, as far as leveraging these, because you can get a pretty basic BLE detector for, let's say, Android, and then it'll detect any BLEs that are near you, and you can actually then just do the interaction fairly quickly from a development standpoint.
Mhm.
So pretty
Makes a lot
exciting
of sense.
stuff. Yep.
So,
I
we're
really
continuing to see chips basically using less power
am.
and batteries getting better, right?
100%. Yep.
So between the two, over the next few years, we should, continue to just I don't know, see gains, I guess, in terms of overall battery life for devices, and that's exciting.
Oh, entirely. Yep.
Use
Definitely.
some of these things in very low power situations. So.
Well, and I think too, the form factor is going to shrink as it keeps going, just like we're seeing with the article that Zeineb was talking about.
Absolutely. Excellent. So it's worth noting that we do have some other articles that we're not going to cover in today's show, but they will be in the show notes. So if you're interested, you can stop by, take a look at the show notes on gearforgesoftware.com and check out some of those other articles, including one about Rolls-Royce getting into IoT or backing some IoT startups, and some news out of Intel. So yes, and I always like to mention, if you have any feedback, you can shoot us a message at podcast@gearforgesoftware.com, or check us out on Twitter. That's Gearforge IoT, and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. So to wrap things up for today, what do you guys have planned for the weekend? Zeineb, what's up for you?
I just got everything from the Arduino project delivered in the last few days.
Yay.
So I'm gonna kindly ask Cliff to help me out with it. Just try to figure it out. And I have it's kind of strange. I pick up the strangest habits. Like I just got this philosophy book for Christmas, and I'm gonna do some reading this weekend. It's gonna be great.
There you go. Yeah.
Reading philosophy is even better.
It's so good. I love philosophy.
Me too. Excellent. How did your D&D go last weekend?
Oh, let's just say I am the craziest stranger in town.
We'll have to get that story offline here, but that sounds super exciting.
Definitely. Cliff, what about you?
I talked about this button project, or excuse me, the bell project forever here. So maybe we can convince my children to work with me this weekend. We will see. No promises. This is probably the longest project ever. And then probably I've got to take a crack at Django here. So
sounds like somebody's been twisting your arm.
I know somebody has been twisting my arm around Django. So I think I'm gonna take a crack at that and daggone Python and play a little bit more.
Snakes. Why did it have
to be snakes?
Yes. This is kind of bad. I thought he was talking about the movie.
No, it's not the movie Django. No, it's a technology. So
yeah, it is Python web framework.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yep. What about you, Matthew? Do you got any big plans for the weekend?
I have no idea.
No.
I'm gonna go visit my folks, but my wife is sick. And my parents are elderly, so I kind of don't want to carry the flu to them. So now I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Well, and it's not warm this weekend, so I don't suggest like sunbathing.
You know what? You could always go watch Black Panther or borrow my philosophy book.
That's true. I'll let you read your philosophy book.
You could do some Battlefront with me.
I would love to do some Battlefront.
Because
I'll also be up for some, if you want to spend some time doing Django.
Oh, there you go.
I kind of like the Django.
All right, yeah, maybe a little bit of both. I like that.
Yeah, that sounds good. So there, now I got plans.
Yes, check.
So that wraps things up for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you'll join us again for next week's show. Until then, so long and be well. Take care, you guys.
Bye.